So, as Alabama continues to roll on the football field, we can't forget about the recruiting side of things. Because today, the Crimson Tide get a massively important addition to their 22 class. Offensive tackle Elijah Pritchett has officially committed to the Alabama Crimson Tide, and we need to talk about what this means because this is a great addition. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited that Pritchett is a member of Alabama's 22 class? Let me know what you're thinking. And if you are new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though small, are massive to content creators such as myself. But with all that being said, let's break this down. And first and foremost, Elijah Pritchett is a top 100 prospect in all of high school football. Currently rated as a top 10 player in his respective position, coming in as the number 9 overall tackle in the nation, number 94 overall in the entirety of high school football. This is a highly sought after individual, one that Nick Saban and company are very happy they get in part of this 22 class for the Crimson Tide. And when we look at the Crimson Tide's class, there's still a lot of room to go. This is commitment number 15 for them, but that's not slowing down how great this class is. Because even though the Crimson Tide only have 15 commitments, they find themselves as the number 3 class in the nation. And when we look at another milestone the Crimson Tide are after, they currently sit with this commitment as the number 2 overall class in the nation if we just look at the average rank per recruit. If we look at the top 5 recruiting classes in the nation right now, there are only 2 recruiting classes that find themselves within that range with less than 20 commitments: Alabama and Ohio State. But if we narrow that list down even further and simply look at the top 4, Alabama is the lone school within the top 4 that has less than 20 commitments, showing that though this Crimson Tide class still has room for others to join in its current capacity, this is an elite class already. And it's even more cause to be excited when you look at some of the individuals Alabama is battling hard for, trying to flip a Damani Jackson, currently locked in a tough battle for Denver Harris, just to name a few top prospects that will excite the fan base. Alabama finds themselves in a bevy of recruiting battles, but winning one like this is huge, and it's great for a few reasons. First and foremost, we all know what football is. It's won and lost in the trenches. So offensive line and defensive line recruiting is paramount. It's amazing to get a 5-star quarterback in your class, and luckily for the Crimson Tide, they have the benefit of having a 5-star quarterback in their class in Ty Simpson. But that great quarterback is nothing without an adequate offensive line to protect him, and individuals such as Elijah Pritchett are what every college in the nation is looking to add into their offensive line. He is that talented. But when you can look at what the Crimson Tide have done along the offensive line recruiting over the past 2 years, it becomes even more impressive, especially when you really start looking into the details. For instance, last year, the Crimson Tide signed, in my opinion, and I've yet to have anybody point me to an offensive line class that was better, so until that happens, it's going to remain my opinion that Alabama signed the greatest offensive line class in modern recruiting history last year. What's so impressive about that is as they lose their offensive line coach as he follows Steve Sarkisian to Texas, Nick Saban pegs Doug Marrone to come in and fill that vacancy, an individual who Saban has wanted for quite some time. And even though the Crimson Tide stacked a unbelievable offensive line haul last year with 2 5-stars, the number 1 tackle, the number 2 tackle, the number 2 guard, and the number 1 center, all in the same offensive line class, and they lose their offensive line coach, that's not slowing down the offensive line recruiting this cycle, because Elijah Pritchett makes for the 3rd offensive lineman for the Crimson Tide, 2 of which rank within the top 100 players in the nation in Tyler Booker and Elijah Pritchett. And Tyler Booker is an individual that I would be very surprised if he did not finish this season as a 5-star, simply because when you look at the totality of circumstances surrounding the young man, goodness gracious, he plays for IMG Academy. Anybody who keeps up with football recruiting, and high school football in particular, knows what IMG Academy does in their development and their strength and conditioning and in their coaching. It is an elite program that is a pipeline to multiple institutions as far as sending guys to college football and then producing early. Tyler Booker is an individual who I would have on 5-star watch, currently sitting as the number 42 overall player in the nation. I do believe he will hit that 5-star mark. But this just highlights how impressive it is what Alabama has been able to do. And look, when we're talking about Alabama impressing on the recruiting front, that surprises absolutely nobody, because that's what we've seen since Nick Saban has arrived, is supreme recruiting. But it's really diving into the devil of the details where you get a real appreciation for what's happening before our very eyes. The Tide only have 15 members of their class, a long way to go, and still find themselves with the second highest average recruit rank and the third best recruiting class overall, all while being locked in multiple battles for blue chip prospects across the nation on both sides of the ball. This Crimson Tide class is one that we have to keep an eye on, because one thing that usually translates when you get a quarterback and an offensive line, other playmakers want to come play with them because they can see a path, they can see an idea of what's happening within that recruiting class, and it excites other recruits. This is something I'm very happy Elijah Pritchett chose the Alabama Crimson Tide. Doug Marrone getting and being involved with his third offensive line recruit thus far in his short Alabama career is something that's great to see, especially when you look at what Alabama signed last year. To continue the dominance on offensive line recruiting isn't surprising by any stretch of the imagination. But we do need to take a moment to really appreciate what's happening in front of us and not get desensitized to the level of excellence Alabama has put forth on the recruiting trail. Hop down to the comments, let me know what you're thinking, because this is a great addition to the Crimson Tide class. A top 100 overall prospect in the nation coming in at 94, a highly athletic kid that looks to have tremendous upside on the next level. All Tide fans should be over the moon that he ended up choosing and rolling with the Crimson Tide. Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.